Destiny, the quaint notion that things happen as a matter of necessity, no longer retains much intellectual currency. But a curious vestige of faith endures in many otherwise skeptical intellectuals, and nothing indicates it more than how they view literature. For intellectuals, destiny as it applies to life is a ludicrous thought, but destiny as it applies to works of fiction and poetry goes largely unquestioned. Call it literary destiny, the faith that great literature will survive and achieve recognition commensurate to its value. We read of Kafka's deathbed plea to his friend and literary executor, Max Brod, to consign his fiction to the hearth, and grin with the realization that Kafka's survival was ordained. Never mind the fact that Kafka's girlfriend, Dora Diamond, loved him enough to take his identical plea to her seriously and put to the torch a large portion of material. In a similar vein, we read the contemporaneous reviews that pilloried Melville, trash belonging to the worst school of Bedlam literature, and Whitman, his failure to understand the business of a poet, is clearly astounding, as dusty scuttlebutt. Yes, we console ourselves. Great work may be greeted with scorn and may even disappear altogether for some stretch of time. But the slow process of literary recognition assures that the sweetest cream eventually rises to the top. The simple problem is that this happy story is, in art as in life, not true. What determines a work's longevity is in many cases an accumulation of unliterary accidents in the lives of individuals years and sometimes even decades after the writer has gone unto the white creator. The race is not to the swift, the author of Ecclesiastes tells us, nor the battle to the strong, but time and chance happen to them all. Nowhere is this truer than literary survival. Some work, through no fault of its own, has simply not made it. If Max Brod had been as obedient as Dora Diamond, the 20th century would have lost its most emblematic writer. In the face of this alarming possibility, Kafka's greatness seems pale reassurance indeed. W. W. Norton & Company stands among the last of the independent American publishing houses, and I came to work there more or less by accident. After a Peace Corps hitch in a magazine internship, I was hired by Norton as an editorial assistant, one of modern civilization's least remunerative, most thankless, yet intensely interesting jobs. With my new worm's eye view of the publishing process, I became aware of the many invisible determinants in a book's journey to hardback. Editorial meetings, for instance. Where I work, editors and salespeople gather every week to determine which books they will buy. A week or two before the meeting, an editor circulates a manuscript or proposal he or she is interested in. At the meeting, the editor makes a case for the book, and discussion ensues. At this point, the vagaries of taste and personality cast an inordinately long shadow. Most editors can tell chilling stories of a cutting, off-the-cuff comment from a colleague that irretrievably turns an entire room against the project at hand. Immense, too, is the influence wielded by a house's sales director, who is forced to make immediate, hard-hearted judgments on what books will sell and how much. Indeed, I suspect that many writers would hang themselves in despair if handed the transcript of an editorial meeting commenced within even a literary house. It still never occurred to me to question the mechanisms of literary survival. Certainly I believed, then as now, that the publishing industry as a whole does literature few favors. Publication is the auction of the mind of man, Emily Dickinson wrote, and I doubt there is an editor alive who would disagree, or an agent who would want to. But I had faith in the books themselves. Every great work, I felt sure, eventually rises above base commerce and sheer indifference. How can one embark upon any serious study of literature without believing this? Accident may misrule the corridors of history and science, but the course of literature is charted by more attentive forces, even if, as the generalissimos of political correctness insist, these forces are racist and sexist. I had spent 5 months at Norton when I was invited to join its paperback committee. The ominous addendum was that I have ideas. As it happened, I did have an idea. When I first arrived in New York, I wandered the aisles of the Strand, the famous clearinghouse for used books, hunting for Paula Fox's desperate characters. I'd first gotten wind of the book in Jonathan Franzen's Harper's essay, Perchance to Dream, which I'd read and admired as an undergraduate. At the time, Franzen's reference to Fox's classic short novel struck me with dismay. Could there be a classic of which I'd never even heard? I lit out to buy a copy, but found it out of print. 2 years after reading Franzen's essay, not even the Strand could help. Now, with the opportunity afforded by Norton, I wrote Franzen for Paula Fox's address, and she, in turn, sent me a copy of Desperate Characters.